If there was modern technology in 1937, what would it be like? Professional cameras, green screens, how would it be different? Let's go back to that time, shall we? First and foremost, the year 1937 was 2 years prior to the end of the Great Depression. The 10-year time period began because of a crash in the stock market, causing millions of people to become unemployed and bankrupt. This greatly changed the economy and American history. Life in San Jacinto wasn't much different. We were best known for our farming abilities, such as growing potatoes and producing milk. We were also known for our hot springs. So what makes this small town so special? In 1937, the very first successful transpolar flight, originating in Moscow, landed in San Jacinto. It took several tries to get the flight correct, but once they did, it was big news. Valery Chiklov was the first Russian pilot to attempt the trip. As a prank, Valery took out a single engine in Gromov's plane, another Russian pilot attempting the same journey, and was able to depart 3 weeks before Gromov was. However, his plane did not make it to California. He made it to Washington, causing the flight to be considered unsuccessful. Gromov set flight 3 weeks later. Initially, the crew was supposed to land in San Diego. However, due to heavy fog, they had to make an emergency landing in a cow pasture in San Jacinto. A month after Gromov and his men landed in San Jacinto, another flight set out for the same journey. Sigmund Levensky and 5 other men attempted the same route, but crashed near the Arctic Circle. The 6 men were killed and there were no trace of them left, but search crews surrounding the event are still active to this day. So how do we know this? Newspaper articles and word of mouth are our main sources of this particular information. Students at Mountain Heights Academy have done some research and studies on the 20th century. This is a representation of a possible newscast in 1937 of the transpolar flight using 2018 technology.
Welcome back to KMSJ Live Newscast. My name is Joshua Nance.
And I'm Giovanni Herrera. Now we're going to pass it to Marta with the weather.
Thank you, Giovanni. Today it is July 14th, 1937. This morning the temperatures was in the low 70s, but temperatures have just recently soared to the mid-90s. We are expecting lower temperatures starting at 4 p.m.
Sorry, Martha, but we're going to cut to breaking news. From Moscow, 3 Soviet men landed here in the town of San Jacinto, while also breaking a new world record. The non-stop 62-hour flight, which covered a whopping 7,120 miles, has the town in utter shock and excitement. Now we switch to Liz, who is on site interviewing the pilot.
Thank you, Josh. We are live in San Jacinto at the site of the event at a local farmer's cow pasture. I have here with me Mr. Mikhail Gromov, the main pilot controlling the aircraft. So, Mr. Gromov, why did you decide to land your plane here?
We were to go to San Diego, but there's mist and not good sea, so come back and land here.
Interesting. Were you prepared for the detour?
No, it was unexpected.
It's amazing how you are able to nail such a landing with no injuries. Now moving on to Mayor Bartel, Mayor of San Jacinto. Mr. Mayor, what was your reaction to the landing of the plane, and how do you think the public will react?
It's amazing. So happy that they could choose the field here in San Jacinto, the greatest place there is in the United States of America, for them to land their plane. This is going to mean taking us out of the Great Depression. Russians from all around will be landing their planes just randomly here to taste our potatoes.
Do you know what the future plans are for the 3-man crew and their plane?
They're going to become national heroes. Before you know it, they'll have potato outfits that they will wear everywhere on a national tour throughout the United States, and then they probably are going to return to Russia to be heroes in their country.
Thank you very much, Mayor Bartel. Now it's time to interview Mr. Smith, and the farmer whose field was used as an emergency landing site. How did you feel about the plane landing in your field?
Well, it was certainly a surprise to find a whole plane in my field. I was enjoying a nice cup of milk at the time when all of a sudden I heard a plane land in my field. I had to go outside, and when I did, I found 3 men in the plane. And, I had to offer them my services, and then I offered them some milk as well, and they accepted it, and the rest is history.
What are you going to do with the plane still in your field?
Well, I'll be charging 25 cents, so anybody who wants to take a good look at it. So I do advise you to come. Thank you, good sir. Have a good look.
Thank you for allowing us to ask you questions. Now back to Giovanni and Josh in the studio.
Now we're switching over to an interview with Mr. Warnicki, who is a local expert on the subject.
Okay, the first question is, how old were you at the time of the event?
Well, I was born in 1932, so I would have been 5, but I wasn't here. I was up in Minnesota, so I never heard of this till I got down here to Southern California. But I've been in California for the last more than 60 years, and I've been involved since I retired with the San Jacinto Museum, and so that's what why I know all this.
How did this event affect the town's economy?
It affected the guy where they landed, because it was a dairyman, and he was smart enough. Of course, there was a fence around the field because it was a cow pasture, so he made a gateway, and he charged $0.25 for everybody that came in, each car, or so his economy. And that's how they know how many people came. See, this was when San Jacinto was not much over 1,000 people, and him it was. But they had figured just the first day had 4,000 people show up at the site out there in that field, because the word got around they were coming from Los Angeles and Orange County and stuff to come up here. So it would affect, but as far as the economy here in 1937 was agriculture, so it wouldn't have really done anything. But he
Do you know what kind of plane that they flew?
it was a single engine wing, and it had a huge wing on it, so it's much like a glider. And so that's why they could get such good fuel economy. The wingspan was 117 feet or so. So this was twice as big as any light planes in those days, or single engine plane. And most of the small planes in those days that you flew had less than 100 horsepower, something like a car engine, or even smaller. This plane here had 1,000 horsepower engine in it. So it was big engine and it made a lot of noise. So that's why, too, it woke up the valley, because they weren't used to anything like that. And they were circling around a couple of times looking for this field. The plane, and this is a remote controlled plane, so it actually flew in a meet up in Las Vegas. The guy built it for the 50th anniversary, so it was done in 1987. So it really flew at one time, remote control. And when we had our 70th anniversary, it had been donated to the museum already, and I said, okay, let's fly it out there on the field, have a real thing. But he wouldn't do it. He's afraid he'd crash or something, and he didn't want to wreck it. So anyhow, it's real light. It only weighs about 20 pounds. And you'll notice there's a lot of signatures on it.
Who are they?
These are the people that witnessed the plane in 1937, and when he had the 70th anniversary, mainly my wife, you get contact and they so-and-so knows so-and-so. So we had 30 people that had actually witnessed the plane now. And so we had the ceremony and everything, and they got up and told a little how they happened to be. Most of them were kids, like from 6 to 12 years old. But the names are all on here, and then there's been others that have come in that have witnessed it, so we get to sign the wing. And there's descriptions here. This is the flag. Remember I told you that was on top of the mountain, and it's a replica of the flag. But this is the crew from Vancouver, and it was the 75th anniversary when they did that. And the tall guy on the end is Chikalev. And the guy that was on the video that you saw that was still alive at the time of that video, General Bykov, that was the one in the middle. Here's the flag, the Soviet flag. I'm not going to take it around, but you can see the hammer and sickle on it from over here.
You want to get closer?
And that's the one that they had at City Hall and flew it.
It was probably very exciting for a lot of people, especially the ones, the paper boy that saw delivering his papers at 6 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, it was very exciting. We got out there and got close to it. After the first day, Mr. Smith started charging to get on the property, so it was He made some money.
Yes, we did learn about that.
But and then they it was here quite a while because they had to cut it up. They cut it up to ship back to Moscow.
Wow.
We just have little pieces of the wing now left, and that's all that's left of the plane because it burned in a fire. The museum it was in burned, so it went with down with the museum.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so you were 7 years old when this happened?
7, 8, yeah.
7, 8. And it happened on what day of the week was it?
I don't remember that.
Do you remember? Oh, because it was summer. You wouldn't be in
we
school.
were probably, yeah, it was summer, so I don't remember what day.
Did you know the paper boy who got to see it the first one?
Probably not then, but later on, yeah. There was Walter Harvey, who they say is the one who saw it first. He was the manager of the cemetery. He took care of the cemetery back there. So I was in school with his kids.
Nice.
And some of the other kids we were in school with, you know. But
what was it like when the Russians came back to visit?
That was very nice, and they had it was a beautiful program they had. Beautiful program.
How big was the plane?
It's like a glider, and our the plane there is the it's a 1/7 scale model, and they don't fly it because once it gets up and all the air underneath those wings, it doesn't want to land. It's like a glider. Once it gets air underneath it, it's going to stay up.
What was it like when you were a little girl when you went into the field and saw it for the first time?
You know, I don't know. I was probably big-eyed and like everybody else, you know. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you remember how crowded it was?
Yeah, it was crowded. A lot of people.
Do you remember when the people from Los Angeles and Orange County started to come? Was that like the second day or something?
Probably. No, because we only went out. I only remember going out one day. And we saw it, and then it was, a couple of miles from home, and we were too young to get there by ourselves.
So how did you get there?
Oh, somebody came by and picked us up. My mother didn't drive a car, so I think we went with an uncle or somebody. They came by and picked us up, and off we went.
Since that fateful day, two unique countries joined and stood together in peace and have celebrated the event every quarter of a century since.